We're just gonna go the rounds again here, I think.
But you never validated my position, the
And
position
you're not
that
listening
I was forced
to me
into by this
either.
experience.
Anyway.
I am listening to you, Janelle, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to lay it.
No,
If you've been wondering whether Janelle Brown and Kody Brown found themselves entangled in a legal dispute over the estate of their late son, Robert Garrison Brown, the heartbreaking truth is, yes, they did. In March 2024, the Brown family was shaken by tragedy when Garrison's life was cut short, and soon after...
Because I'm not sure.
You did the same exact thing to me. Exactly.
A probate case quietly emerged to sort through the details of his estate. But this is where it gets really interesting. Even though Kody was his father, he was not the one chosen to oversee the process. It was Janelle, though, who took over that role, and most recently, she was able to complete the sale of a substantial amount of Garrison's property, a townhouse that he had proudly bought in 2021.
Janelle has really made it difficult for me to feel like I'm married to her anymore. It's just, she's just constantly gone. I don't think we can reconcile.
I didn't think these kinds of things had an expiration date, but it appears that our relationship might have had an expiration date. She was a separate entity.
Last week, Janelle confirmed that she actually closed the sale at the end of December, a significant milestone in closing out her son's business. What really happened in that hushed-up courtroom battle? And why was so much of it kept out of the public eye? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and walk through exactly what unfolded and what it reveals about the fractured relationships inside the Brown family. Garrison's story in the months leading up to his passing is both inspiring and gut-wrenching. Residing in Flagstaff, he was building a future for himself. He was working in security, having just begun while still taking courses with the aspiration to become a nurse. He was getting ahead, setting goals, achieving independence, and even buying a home of his own. However, his life was brought to an untimely end just months after season 18 of Sister Wives had been released. From the television program, the fissures were already evident. Kody's relationship with his older kids, particularly Garrison, had broken down horribly. Garrison himself had been brutally candid. He told his father he never did care to get to know him, didn't inquire about his life, and had no idea about milestones. Kody didn't know that his son had purchased a home. He didn't know about the car Garrison was so proud of. The separation was so profound that even the smallest information regarding his son's daily activities appeared to elude him. In Garrison's book, it was evident that Kody's fault lay squarely on one reason: his ardent support for Robyn. To him, Robyn was more than a favorite wife. It was someone who coined rubbishy narratives where she plays the perpetual victim and subtly positions herself in such a manner where Kody's attention will forever rest on her. And it worked. Time and again, Kody sided with Robyn, often at the expense of his other children. Garrison openly stated that Robyn was willing to sacrifice his relationships with his siblings if it meant she got what she wanted from Kody. He saw this favoritism as a game, one he refused to play. And because he refused, he was pushed to the sidelines, emotionally cut off from his own father. From Garrison's point of view, Kody had traded in his extended family for Robyn and wanted something in return: complete and unconditional loyalty. An environment that has little time for originality or independent thinking leaves no room for authenticity. Only obedience will suffice. So, Garrison stayed away, strictly protecting himself from the manipulative dynamics that had established themselves in the family. Then there was the fateful March 2024 day when Garrison was gone. The cause of death caused many questions at first, but one truth he cannot change. At the time of his death, he and his father were separated. Janelle even confirmed this to the police authorities. And perhaps one of the most deadly signs of all was Kody's failure to show up at the place of death. Later, both parents spoke publicly about their grief, but the difference between their responses could not have been more striking. Kody's comments, while acknowledging regret, seemed to be somehow detached. In one remark, he said he wished he could have shared a drink with Garrison, an unsettling remark given that alcohol poisoning played a role in his death. It was as if Kody didn't fully grasp the weight of what had been lost, or perhaps couldn't confront the truth of their fractured bond. Janelle, on the other hand, was utterly heartbroken. Her pain was raw, visible, and heavy with the kind of regret that only comes from losing a child you love more than life itself. She had wanted desperately to help him, to pull him through whatever struggles he was facing, but time had run out. The contrast between her visible anguish and Kody's cool detachment only magnified the emotional chasm between them. With Garrison gone, the question of his estate became the next challenge. At the time of his death, he wasn't just a young man with dreams. He was a property owner, a landlord, and someone who had worked hard to build assets. He had a house with tenants, a car, and other belongings. Sorting it all out wasn't going to be simple, and that's how the issue found its way into probate court, laying the groundwork for a low-key but highly revealing judicial procedure that would unmask where true loyalties really resided. Whether or not Garrison had drawn up a will prior to his death, the fact was that probate nonetheless needed to occur in order to finalize the specifics of his estate. Probate court is not just a formality. It is actually a judicial procedure enacted so that each and every debt can be accounted for, every creditor addressed, and anything remaining does indeed go to the persons entitled to inherit. And all that could only start by the authority of the appointment of someone as the personal representative, otherwise sometimes referred to as the executor, of Garrison's estate. That responsibility ultimately fell to Janelle Brown. In Coconino County, Arizona, where the case was filed, probate records aren't accessible to the general public, meaning most of what took place happened entirely behind closed doors. Still, reports confirm that on June 10, 2024, exactly 3 months after Garrison's death, Janelle obtained an official court order granting her the authority to serve as his personal representative without any restrictions. The court formalized this through what's known as letters testamentary, which gave her full legal power to act on behalf of Garrison's estate. In Arizona, not just anyone can take on this role. The personal representative must be at least 18, mentally competent, not a foreign corporation, and perhaps most importantly, someone the court deems suitable. Typically, the court looks first to immediate family, a spouse, adult child, sibling, or parent. But the law also allows for others who are entitled to inherit from the estate. In this case, the records don't reveal whether Garrison himself had specifically named Janelle in a will, or whether the court selected her after weighing all the interests of those connected to him. What is clear is that probate courts are tasked with making these decisions carefully, often after hearings that give all potential parties, siblings, parents, even creditors, a chance to be heard. Janelle's appointment meant she had the responsibility to manage Garrison's financial affairs in their entirety, paying off outstanding debts, maintaining and selling property, and distributing whatever remained to the heirs. And make no mistake, this is a role that can be contested. Under Arizona law, siblings, creditors, or even Kody Brown himself could have come forward to request appointment as the estate's personal representative. But as the surviving parent of an adult child, Janelle was seen as the most suitable candidate. Even though she doesn't live in Arizona, state law allows non-residents to serve under certain conditions she met without issue. This had another implication. Kody Brown had not been named as a personal representative, meaning he had no legal standing, no say, in how the property would be distributed. For one man who has frequently been at the hub of decisions within the family, this legal fact was a dramatic reversal of authority. Having been given the authority by the court, Janelle set to work. She began tackling the practical and often painful steps of closing her son's affairs. That included settling any debts and preparing his home for sale. Because probate records in Arizona are sealed from public view, the finer details of how she carried out those steps remain private. But one thing we do know is that Janelle used her power of attorney to hire a realtor to handle the sale of Garrison's townhouse, the same one he had purchased in 2021 using a loan of roughly $320,000. After about 3 months on the market, the house finally sold for $338,600. On paper, that might sound like a solid figure. But once realtor commissions, closing costs, and any remaining loan balances were deducted, it's likely Janelle didn't see much, if any, net profit from the sale. And beyond the financial side, every step of this process must have been emotionally taxing. Clearing out his belongings, signing paperwork that finalized the transfer of his home, and closing a chapter of his life that ended far too soon. The only glimmer of good news in all of this was that Janelle did not have to carry the sale of Garrison's house on her own. That meant she was not left in an even larger financial deficit to grapple with, in addition to the devastating emotional loss of losing her son. In her role as personal representative, she also had the authority to resolve Garrison's remaining financial matters, from clearing any car loans to distributing life insurance benefits. And given Garrison's service in the National Guard, it's highly likely that his life insurance named Janelle as the beneficiary. That would have at least offered her some measure of financial stability during a time when everything else in her world felt so uncertain, so unbearably fragile. With the townhouse now sold, it was no longer part of the estate, freeing Janelle to move forward with closing the last of Garrison's affairs. The process was not only time-consuming, but deeply emotional. Yet it was Janelle's unwavering determination that ensured her son's legacy stayed in the hands of someone who truly loved and cared for him. And here's the part that stings: the sharp contrast between words and actions. For years, Kody Brown has proudly branded himself as the patriarch, the so-called head of the Brown family, the man in control. But when his own son passed away, when the moment came to step in, to lead, to protect, to stand shoulder to shoulder with the boy's mother, he was nowhere to be found. Isn't that what a true leader would do? Wouldn't a true patriarch lead and nurture, seeing to it that his child's business was conducted with dignity and respect? Far from it, Kody's absence said plenty. This wasn't merely an absence of presence. It was an indication of a long-standing pattern. For so many years, Kody's relationship with Janelle's children has been characterized by distance, abandonment, and, at times, emotional brutality. It makes the patriarch label ring hollow, a seeming facade for the cameras, that he plays doting father to Robin's kids while effectively erasing his relationship with his own sons. The truth is, Garrison's death left Janelle not just grieving, but utterly alone to untangle the legal and emotional complexities of his estate. Luckily, she wasn't completely alone. Her lawyers, her extended family, and her own resilience saw her through. She sold the townhouse. She wrapped up the estate. She closed a book that no mother should ever have to write. And quite possibly most important of all, as the court-appointed personal representative, she made sure Kody had no legal access to any of Garrison's assets. Considering his years of neglect, manipulation, and emotional abandonment, it's hard to imagine anyone believing he had a moral right to benefit from his late son's life's work. It's equally heartbreaking and infuriating to reflect on the role that this estrangement, and Kody's behavior, may have played in Garrison's struggles with mental health. The void left by an absent father can be deep, and in Garrison's case, it was never filled. His challenges with alcohol and his silent battles were compounded by years of rejection and favoritism, wounds that were never addressed. Yet, if you've been watching season 19 of Sister Wives, you've probably noticed something chilling. Garrison's name has barely been spoken. He hasn't appeared on camera. His story hasn't been meaningfully addressed. It's almost as if the show has scrubbed him from the narrative entirely. This erasure is especially striking considering that, just before his passing, the show's longtime producer, Tim Givens, departed. The shift is noticeable. The new production team has completely altered the storytelling style. Episodes now hop between characters in a way that feels disjointed, sometimes abruptly toggling from Mary's storyline to Christine's, then to Robin's. Even the music cues have changed, leaning into overly dramatic tones that sometimes feel out of place. And what's perhaps most disturbing is the apparent attempt to set up a redemption arc for Kody and Robin. In my view, this isn't just misguided. It's offensive, considering the very real pain that has gone unacknowledged. When the network released press materials back in August, they promised this season would address the tragedy of Garrison's passing. Yet here we are, deep into the season, with no clear indication if, or how, they plan to cover it. The silence is deafening. And that silence leads us right back to the probate case, to Janelle's position as the sole individual legally authorized to manage Garrison's affairs. Kody has been completely excluded. No access, no say, no right to lay claim to anything related to his son's life. That in itself says a lot about the reality behind his patriarch facade. What sort of patriarch walks away from responsibility when his family is in greatest need? Janelle's strength throughout all of this is nothing short of amazing. She fought the legal system, sold the home, managed the debts, and protected her son's estate, all while bearing her grief. She didn't only fill in where Kody failed, she showed what leadership and love really look like. So I'll leave you with that. What do you think of Janelle's assertiveness and Kody's whereabouts? How do you feel about the direction this season the show is taking its storyline, and about the conspicuous absence of Garrison's plotline? If you have gotten value from this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me next time as we continue to unravel the facts behind the carefully constructed image of the Brown family. For here, we tell the stories they would rather you forget.